Howdy, guys, and welcome to night number 40 of Big Brother Season 24's overnight feed recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes. A good new week to y'all. Monday morning, which means that we've got the veto ceremony today. The veto ceremony is going to be interesting. The repercussions and the discussions after the veto ceremony are going to be even more exciting. I'm looking forward to it. So with that being said, we had a lot of discussions last night. So let's talk about the feeds. But before we do that, a real quick refresher on kind of what's going on in the house. First of all, Taylor's HOH. She put up Indy and Terrence on the block. Kyle won the veto on Saturday. Taylor has been expecting him to use it to use a veto so that she can backdoor Alyssa. We're going to talk about why she wants to do that here in a little bit. But as much as she wants that, Kyle's kind of thinking that maybe he'd rather not use a veto and send Indy home instead of his partner in their showmance. And speaking of showmance, it seems like this showmance may have moved to a whole new level over the weekend. May have gotten a little closer than even before. And I'll leave it at that. Let your imaginations run wild. All right. So a couple other things before we actually talk about the feeds. Alyssa hurt her back while lifting weights. Monty was giving her instructions. I guess she tried to lift a little too much. She's been in pain. She saw medics. She got painkillers and icy pack, and sounds like it'll be good in a couple of days, but she's really in a bit of pain. Apparently Terrence hurt his back also while getting some weight training from Monty. Don't be trying to show off with your weights while you're in that house. All it does is, if you're successful, it makes you look like a bigger threat. If not, and you hurt yourself, well, then it hurt your game as well. So we've got Alyssa and Terrence both hurt. And of course, we still have Jasmine's ankle that's giving her some fits as well. So we got a few injuries in the house. All right. The other big thing to talk about before we get into the feeds themselves, Balloon Gate. There's how was it? Muffin Gate, Cider Gate. Now we got Balloon Gate. Apparently, Jasmine and her dad's birthday are both on, I think it's on Tuesday or Wednesday. Jasmine wants to release a balloon in honor of her dad on Wednesday. Never mind that they won't have the backyard, but apparently she's asked the diary room for a balloon that she'd like to release in his honor. She mentioned that out in the backyard. Well, Turner immediately said, hey, I get it, but I'm kind of anti-balloon release because that thing can pop, a bird could eat it and die, and I'm kind of opposed to it. Jasmine was not happy to hear that someone didn't like her idea about releasing a balloon. She's spent a lot of time talking about how disrespectful it was of Turner to say that to her. She's upset at other house guests such as Joseph because she feels like they weren't really supporting her, that maybe they were laughing a little bit about the whole deal. And in typical Jasmine fashion, she kind of complained about it for quite a while yesterday afternoon until eventually Turner approached her and said, that's not what I meant. I didn't want to disrespect. It's just, I don't want to see birds killed, but I apologize. I didn't mean anything by it. And they kind of soothed it over, I suppose, as much as you can soothe over something like that. But Balloon Gate certainly was the thing yesterday. So getting in the way of the gameplay, and you got to be careful if you're Jasmine. Just one more thing that people are going to remember, and we'll talk about that as well. So on to the feeds themselves. All right, we've got Kyle telling Alyssa, they're cuddling up in bed a little bit, and Kyle's telling Alyssa that there's things going on, and he's saying, I'm not going to use the veto, even though there's a lot of pressure on me to use this veto, Alyssa, but I'm not going to do it. Indy is going to go home. And he's telling her, saying, look, there's a plan in place. We're getting to the point where we're going to be able to play this game together out in the open. So everything's going to work. But he just keeps saying, you can't tell anyone. You can't tell anyone. He keeps saying, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Yes, I trust you. Well, then don't tell anyone. And he won't give her any details of this plan. But he's letting her know that he's not using the veto. And that they have this plan in action, which I think he's referencing working with Brittany and Michael and perhaps Turner as well. But the main key is Alyssa is not going to go home because Kyle is not planning to use the veto itself. He does tell her as well, said, look, we're going to need to distance ourselves from each other for the next couple of days. Just trust me on that. And while you're at it, you got your injured back. You may want to play that up just a little bit and make people think it's maybe even a little worse than it is. because it may benefit both of us if you do that. And so Alyssa's saying, sure, yeah, whatever I need to do, I trust you on it. All right. That being said, we finally had early evening, we had the big Taylor and Kyle talk in the HOH. Remember, Taylor wants the veto used. Kyle does not want the veto used. So we got two members of the leftover alliance that are kind of butting heads over what's going to happen today at this veto ceremony. Taylor wants the veto used. She wants Alyssa gone. She's saying that it wasn't so. She starts it off by saying, look, I need to walk you through this, Kyle, because otherwise it sounds very petty. Well, when you have to give that as your warning, that's a good sign that maybe it is a little bit petty. But she's saying, look, it wasn't so much about the trip itself that Alyssa took from me during the veto competition, but the fact that in taking that trip, Alyssa was demonstrating that her social standing is so much stronger than any power I have. That her taking that means she's so secure about her position in the House that she wasn't even worried about me having power, using a veto to backdoor her, any of that. That's, that she's showing disrespect to the HOH is what she has said before. Well, part of that is that Taylor has some blame in this, because if she hadn't promised safety to all the girls earlier, then they wouldn't have felt so secure in their position in the House, and they might have been fighting a little harder for veto as opposed to the trips themselves. Indy did that. Indy tried to grab the veto. In fact, she yelled at everyone else, leave the veto alone. That's for me. Well, it didn't work out that way, but Indy did grab the veto. Alyssa, feeling that she was safe, took the trip instead, and Taylor's not liking that. Taylor's not happy at all about that. Taylor's saying that for her and anybody watching the show, you know that you always take the veto. And that's true. I mean, if you don't take the veto, you come across as being very cocky, and you run into issues just like Alyssa ran into in this position as well. Having said that, when it was Taylor's turn, she was evicted second in that competition. When it was Taylor's turn, she decided not to take the veto from, I think Terrence was the first one out, and he had the veto. Taylor decided not to take the veto from Terrence, but instead to take the trip. So she's upset at Alyssa, saying you always take the veto. Well, she didn't take it either. But anyway, so that's her background for why she really wants Alyssa to be gone. She's also saying, look, this action, it's a perfect excuse, a perfect time to send Alyssa home. We've got a reason for why we're sending her out. It's because she was cocky in the veto ceremony, because she took the trip from the HOH. This is a perfect reason, a perfect excuse. We may not get another one like this on down the road. So Kyle comes back and says, look, we don't really need a reason later. We're in the leftover alliance. She's not. Somewhere down the road, we just say, hey, sorry, but we've got an alliance working together and you're not part of it. He says, we don't need any huge excuse. We just say you're not in the alliance, and that's it. He's also saying, that she's not part of the leftovers. So when time comes, and he's okay with that. He's also saying that he has some of the blame on how this went down. He says, look, I know Alyssa was boneheaded. She shouldn't have taken a trip from you. She acknowledges it, that was stupid to do and all that. He says, but I got to take part of the blame in it, because I had told her that I was going for the veto, that no matter what prizes, nothing out there, I was going to take the veto. And he said, because of that, she knew that if she took the veto, she wasn't going to hold on to it anyway, that there was zero chance that she was going to end up with the veto, since I was still in the game and had a choice after she did. He said, so based on that, she really only had two options, Taylor. She could either take the trip from you, or she could stick with a punishment that she already had. And so she chose the prize, even though that, optics may not have looked great on that, but that's why she did it. And I'm partly to blame for that, Taylor. So he's trying to explain it in that way. But he's also questioning her, saying, look, I understand that you're upset because Alyssa took a prize instead of a veto. He said, but shouldn't you be just as upset with Jasmine, since Jasmine took the prize from Alyssa a little bit later, as she took a prize instead of the veto? She did exactly what Alyssa did. And he says, and Jasmine would have taken the trip from you if you still had it at that point in time, instead of taking the veto. So everything that you're so upset with Alyssa about, shouldn't you be just as upset with Jasmine about? And Taylor doesn't really respond that much to that particular line of inquiry. Taylor has said at one point that the house wants Alyssa gone, and Kyle's responding saying, well, I talked to the house, and Monty and Joseph are kind of indifferent. Michael and Brittany and Turner, they all say that they're fine with Alyssa staying. They'd like to see Alyssa stay. At which point Taylor is saying, well, there may be some flip-flopping going on because that's not what I heard. And yes, that is what she heard. I think Brittany and Michael were siding a little bit more with Taylor and Taylor's plan when she talked to him. Well, when we had an earlier conversation in the afternoon where Brittany and Michael basically talked to Alyssa and said, you need to talk to Kyle, convince him not to use a veto, no matter what Taylor says, convince him not to use a veto. We like you. We want to work with you, and just trust us. You need to do that. Because they knew the plan was to backdoor Alyssa. So certainly Brittany and Michael are willing to hold on to Alyssa, but they may have told Taylor something slightly different when they were talking to her. All right, we've got Kyle going on with his argument, saying, look, I've got reasons for wanting out both Terrence and Indy. Terrence was the only person who voted to send me out the door instead of Daniel last week, so perfect excuse to send him home. And he says, and Indy, we won veto, pulled her off the block. She gave me a hug, but she's never thanked me. She's really never shown any gratitude since then. So I've got reasons to want either one of them to go home. So he's saying, why would I pull one of them off when I really have a good reason to want them out the door? Why would I pull them off just so you can put up my showmance? And it just doesn't make sense. Anyone that's looking at it. Taylor's arguing that Alyssa is such a strong player, and Kyle's arguing otherwise. He's saying she can't compete. She hadn't shown that she's a competitive threat at all. And Taylor's saying, well, strategically, socially, and all that. And Kyle's saying, well, just because she likes everyone, doesn't make her a social threat. Well, in a way it does. I mean, a charismatic person is a threat in the house. But he's talking about strategically. He's saying, look, she's the one that spilled all the beans about the girls and the old school alliance that caused us as the leftovers to form. He said she hadn't done anything strategically except screw up the game for the other side. So he said, I'm not sure where anyone's coming from thinking that she's a strategic threat whatsoever. And I can ride with that. Strategically, not so much. Socially and all that, yeah, she's got a little bit more going for her. But that's what Kyle is arguing. He also is saying, look, I'll be fine getting rid of Alyssa at some point in the future when it makes sense. He says, right now, though, he said, we've got other good options in this house, and it doesn't make sense for me necessarily to want to get rid of her right now. And he tells Taylor, he says, it's just like you and Jasmine. He says, when the time's right, you're going to send out Jasmine, right? Over, you'll pick the alliance over Jasmine. And Taylor saying, oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no question. And Kyle saying, well, same thing here. He said, I'm not saying I'm not going to send out Alyssa. When the time's right, I'll send her out. I'm just saying this week isn't the week to send her out, just like you're saying this week isn't the week to send Jasmine out. That was a very good argument right there. So he's talking about that. And he's also telling her, saying, look, if I don't use a veto, I'm going to get the blame from the other side. Indy and Jasmine and Terrence, they're all going to be mad at me. And he said, I'll take the blame. I'll take the heat. I don't mind. Blame it all on me. And that's fine. I'm willing to do that. So we do have that. All right. Eventually we get Monty and Joseph and Turner all enter the HOH room as well. And the discussion again turns towards veto, whether to use it or not. Turner seems to be supporting the idea of going ahead and keeping noms the same and getting Indy out. But Joseph seems to be arguing more the other direction about saying, yeah, maybe Alyssa needs to go. So we've got a little bit of dissent within the leftovers at this point in time. All right, another conversation we've got going on in the hammock in the backyard, Kyle and Indy and Jasmine. Kyle is starting off by telling Indy the plan is still to take you off with the assumption, at least Indy's assuming, and Jasmine, the assumption is that Taylor will then put Monty up in Indy's place. And Kyle's like, yeah, as far as I know, that's still the plan. No, it's not, but he's not ready to tell Indy just yet. But Kyle does start planting the seeds. He's saying, look, I'm a little nervous about Taylor. I don't know how much I can trust her. I truly don't. He said, look, she promised you girls safety, and Indy, you're on the block. So I just don't know how much I trust Taylor. And he's saying he's been hearing some talk about Alyssa taking this prize, and maybe there's some blowback from that, some people that aren't happy. He's saying, I'm just worried that if people are a little upset with Alyssa and I use this veto, that, I just don't know what would happen. And so he's planting the seeds that maybe he doesn't want to use the veto because he's afraid something could happen to Alyssa. Now, Indy does not like hearing that news. She's not real happy. In fact, at one point, Indy says, look, if you keep me on the block, if you don't pull me off, just go ahead and vote me out and send me out of the house. I'm not going to the jury house. I'm just going home. I'm not doing that. I'm not spending 6 weeks over in that jury house. And everyone around her is saying, you've got to, that's part of the contract. You got to stick around. You can't just leave. And she's like, I'm not leaving. And eventually she backs off a little bit, but Indy's not going to be happy. Which is why it's going to be interesting to see what happens after the veto ceremony today. All right. We've got Taylor at one point asking Brittany and Michael, saying, look, did y'all tell Kyle that y'all would prefer to keep Alyssa in the house over Indy? And they kind of hem-haw around about it. Brittany's saying, yeah, I don't really recall that conversation. And Michael's busy talking about what might be the best scenario going forward, while really avoiding talking about what might have been said previously. So they didn't really ever give an answer, but they eventually both say, yeah, we're indifferent. Indy, Alyssa, we really don't care one way or the other which of the two goes home. Well, we know that's not the case. They'd much rather prefer to have Alyssa in the house, but they're telling Taylor, we're not really committing one way or the other. Yeah, whichever way benefits the leftovers, we're fine with it. All right, we've got Monty in the room also, and he's saying, look, if Kyle's willing to take the heat for not using the veto, I'm fine. As long as it's not someone from the leftovers going home, I'm fine with whichever one of them goes home. So Monty's kind of saying, if Kyle wants to do it, let him do it. All right. With that being said, the house got called to the storage room. They got, for Jasmine's birthday, there's strawberry cake mix, there's alcohol, there's little party hats, but none of it for last night. This is all in preparation for Jasmine's birthday a couple of days from now. It was great. The camera kept zooming in on Turner, who you could tell, and Taylor to some degree as well, who both wanted to be anywhere but in that storage room listening to Jasmine going on and on about her birthday celebration coming up. But they're prepared. Jasmine, it's birthday week, right? It's not just a birthday, it's birth week for Jasmine this week. All right, we've got Taylor talking to Michael and Brittany and Monty, again, saying that she'll drop this plan to evict Alyssa. It just doesn't seem like enough people are on board with it. If Kyle's really insisting, she's going to drop the eviction plan. But then she turns around, she says, but she really wants Alyssa and Indy on the block so that they'll implode, they'll fight against each other, that she's fine with keeping Alyssa, but Alyssa has to be on the block and with Indy, and therefore the veto has to be used. Well, she didn't have the power to make that decision, and I don't think it's going to happen. All right, we've got Indy alone in the HOH with Taylor, just trying to figure out what's going on. Indy mentions that she's afraid that Kyle's not going to use a veto because he's afraid that Taylor is then going to put up Alyssa in Indy's place. Taylor's acting all surprised, saying, oh, where would he get that idea? Why would he think that? And she says that she would never put up Alyssa for something as petty as her taking the prize from Taylor. Well, we've had that discussion. Taylor's saying that she absolutely needs a veto to be used, though, because she has a bigger target in mind. And if the veto isn't used, then her whole HOH is screwed. So she's telling Indy she'll do what she can. She's telling Indy, I'll take care of it. I just need to talk to Kyle, tell him to use a veto. And she also says, look, even if the nominations aren't changed, even if it is you up on the block against Terrence is going home. You're not going anywhere. And Indy doesn't like her. She's not, I don't want to be on the block. In fact, at one point she says, I need you to promise me that I'm not going to be on the block come Thursday. Well, Taylor can't promise that. Taylor doesn't have the power to promise that. But she's still asking. Indy's also warning that Monty is coming for him, and Taylor saying, I know, I trust me, I'm doing what I can, but I got to convince Kyle. All right, we've got Jasmine then comes up into the HOH room also. Taylor is wondering if this point, if maybe, or at least she's throwing out the idea to Indy and Jasmine saying, look, do y'all think Kyle and Monty are working together? And that maybe Monty got in Kyle's head. Maybe Monty's the one behind this idea that I'm going to put Alyssa up just to get Kyle not to use a veto so that I can't put Monty up. Maybe it's Monty that's responsible for all of this, that he's just gotten in Kyle's head. It's a pretty smart little way to deflect there. All right, we've got Alyssa in the HOH room with Taylor and Jasmine and Indy. All of them are talking about backdooring Monty. This side just doesn't really have a clue just yet. They're still thinking the plan is to backdoor Monty. Alyssa does apologize to Taylor for taking the trip from her, saying, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it, and just spur of the moment. I wish I hadn't. I'm sorry." And then at this point, Indy asks if she can promise that she'll be off the block Thursday. Of course not. All right, we've got Monty and Michael. We're going to go fast through this a little bit. Monty and Michael and Taylor are in the bathroom. Michael is saying he understands why Kyle doesn't want to use a veto, but Monty is worried that someone being Alyssa, someone outside the alliance has so much pull on someone within the alliance, that being Kyle. So he's a little bit worried about that. Taylor is also saying that she does understand Kyle's position. She doesn't like it or agree with it, but she understands his position. And Monty is saying, well, it is what it is. I just really hope that when the time does come for us to send out Alyssa, that Kyle truly isn't going to have any issues doing it. And I think at one point Taylor says, well, I hope in 2 weeks we aren't really regretting this decision. All right, we've got Kyle and Joseph and Turner talking. I think this was in the backyard. Joseph is saying that the very fact that there was pushback against putting Alyssa on the block is a sign of a problem, because he's saying there wasn't any of that pushback when we talked about putting Indy in the block. Everyone's sold on that. Now we talk about Alyssa, and suddenly we're getting some pushback. That tells me that Alyssa is a little tighter or a little bit more problematic than Indy ever will be with regards to this group itself. And he's got a point there. The discussion is back and forth on whether Indy or Alyssa is a bigger threat. Eventually Joseph is saying, look, if Indy and Alyssa are on the block together, they're going to fight each other. They're going to show their cards, and it's going to be great. Kyle's saying, why is that necessary? There's only 3 girls left over in that side. Why do we have to have them fighting and everything else? He's saying it just doesn't make sense. And he's saying, why would I use a veto to pull Indy off so we can put Alyssa up just to turn around and send out Terrence? Or why would I use it to pull Terrence off to put Alyssa up just to send out Indy anyway? So it just seems like it doesn't really benefit anything to be doing that. So Joseph still kind of pushing maybe to backdoor Alyssa, and Kyle's arguing why that shouldn't be the case. Turner steps in and says, look, I'm just bugged that the person that we all want out is Jasmine, and Taylor won't consider the one person that would be the perfect target this week. Yeah, agreed. All right, we finally get a meeting of all 7 left over at the pool table outside in the middle of the night. Turner saying that, look, if Kyle doesn't use the veto, it's going to hide the fact that Taylor and Kyle are working together. It may benefit us in a little way, because the other side's going to see this conflict between the two. And so that may benefit us. Kyle's wondering why, that's what I said before, why use a veto to put Alyssa up if Indy's just going to go home anyway? And everyone at the end seems to be in agreement that, okay, we'll just keep the nominations the same. Let's make it simple, not do anything too fancy. This isn't a hard week. There's 4 people that aren't in your alliance. Put 2 of them up. If someone had won veto, you could have switched someone out. Easy peasy, but they want good TV. All right, we've got Kyle and Monty and Joseph all still in the backyard. Monty's saying they need to take out Jasmine next, because if Taylor wins another HOH, she's not going to go for Jasmine that time any more so than this time. So they're saying if she won't do it, we're going to have to take out Jasmine. And Joseph is saying that Jasmine's a much bigger threat than Alyssa. So he's agreeing they need to get her out when they get a chance. They also mentioned the fact that Jasmine has a business, that she's super rich. I don't know if she's super rich or not, but that they think she's super rich, that she doesn't need any of this, to get her out of here. They don't especially like the way she's playing. She's got money. They're ready to boot her out the door. All right, we got Taylor, Brittany, and Michael talking. Taylor saying that every half hour or so, she's tempted to put Jasmine up. This may have been up in the HOH room. I can't remember. Taylor saying every half hour or so, she's tempted to just say, forget it. Jasmine, you're going up. But the only thing that's holding her back is she said that during the entire casting process, she over and over said that she would not put up a black woman while she was HOH. And so she just doesn't want to go back on that. And that's she knows what the target is. Strategically, she knows what's best for the game. She just doesn't want to do it. All right. She's saying that she could tell Kyle to use a veto so that she could then put up Jasmine, but then turn around and put up Alyssa anyway. because of that, and Brittany and Michael kind of laugh, and Taylor laughs too. I don't know that she's 100% serious, but because of that, it's why I don't think Kyle's using the veto, no matter what is promised by Taylor at this point in time, because he doesn't trust her enough not to turn around and backdoor Alyssa anyway. All right, a couple of real quick conversations to finish this thing up. Brittany, Kyle, and Michael are talking. Brittany's saying that Taylor just wants her big moment for TV. We've heard her say that. She wants to use a veto. She has a speech prepared for Alyssa. She had one all about, you wanted the trip, so cheerio all the way to the jury house. And she really had she was coming for Alyssa. She had some interesting comments planned. Well, she probably isn't going to get to use them now, but Brittany's saying she's just in it for for a big moment for HOH. Kyle is not understanding why this week has to be so hard. And as I said before, I agree. Just go for the people, not on the leftovers, and whoever it is, it shouldn't really matter that much. Michael is saying that Taylor wanting out Alyssa is just about revenge. She can say what she wants. It's just about revenge. It's what's taking place there. All right, finally, we've got the leftovers upstairs. A little bit of complaining going on about Jasmine. Joseph's complaining about Jasmine, saying that Jasmine said that she's pretty sure that she's Julie's Chin's favorite. Joseph saying that she and Terrence sleep right next to him, that as long as Joseph turns his head, they don't even think he's awake, and they just talk all their plans. He mentions that Jasmine's office is her bed. He says that the only time Terrence and Jasmine actually talk to him, this being Joseph, is when they're giving him orders. So it doesn't really like the way they talk to him too much. He's wondering, saying, if Jasmine can do comps, why can't she cut her own watermelons? There was a big scandal earlier in the day because someone had left a watermelon out. The ants took over, just completely covered the thing. Brittany mentioned it, and I guess no one would own up that it was their watermelon. Eventually, Joseph pointed out, said, "Hey, Jasmine, that's a watermelon I cut for you, right?" And Jasmine said, "Oh, yeah. She still didn't clean it up. Brittany had to clean it up and throw it away. So there's some griping about that as well. They're saying that another Jasmine HOH would be just a reign of terror. Their words, not mine, a reign of terror. And Taylor saying that she is so fed up with Jasmine, if she could put her up and get her out tomorrow, that she would. So again, Jasmine's not going home this week, but she's probably going to be the second person in the jury house, depending on what happens with this twist. There's just a lot of people fed up with her right now. So there you have it, guys. Veto ceremony today. I fully expect the veto will not be used. Indy will have a meltdown once that occurs. So we'll see what happens with that. I fully expect then come Thursday, Indy will be headed out the door as juror number one in the jury house. If she doesn't jump out of the car and run away before they get to the jury house, because she doesn't want to be there, she'll end up there. So there you have it, guys. It's going to be fun. I can't wait for this evening. I'll be back tomorrow to give you all the details on what happened to the veto ceremony and everything afterwards. It's going to be a great one. Y'all have a fantastic Monday. Until then, guys, that's KD143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.